it's Claire here from JH Coaching, and today I want to talk to you about blisters and how to avoid them. They can be really painful, and as you can see from the blister in this picture, they can also put you out of running for a good amount of time if they're real beauties like that. So avoiding them is the best policy. How do we do that? Well, there are a few things we can do. The first thing is to think about what we put on our feet. So if we start with socks, good quality running socks will help prevent blisters, and it really is quite personal. What works for one person might not work for another. My personal preference is for quite a thick sock, so I'm well cushioned in my shoe, and for a sock, these in particular I like, these are in ginger socks, so they're like a glove on your feet. They work well for me, but good running socks cost money. So I've tried cheaper socks and they really just don't work for me. I always get sore feet when I wear cheaper socks. Partly I think because they don't fit properly. So, you know, socks that don't fit properly, that have big bulks in them, that maybe fold up or ruck up inside the shoe, they're going to cause a pressure point, which eventually is going to turn into some kind of blister. So make sure that your sock fits properly and that it's the right size for your foot and that it's the type of sock that you know works well for you. Try a few different ones and find one that suits you. I'm actually going to do a review of several running socks, so look out for that video and that might give you some helpful tips around that. Once you've got your socks sorted, the next thing is shoes. With shoes, it's important to get shoes that fit well, not too tight because they're going to cause some friction and pressure points maybe on the bridge or elsewhere in your foot, and not too loose because you don't want your foot rubbing around inside the shoe and causing more friction and blisters elsewhere. The ideal is to find a shoe that suits you and suits the terrain that you're going to be running on. And to do that, really, over the years, it's about trying things out. I've been using these Sportiva Mutant for years now, and I really like them. They're really suitable to the terrain that I run on. And I pretty much use them all the time. But I also have some road shoes for when I do the occasional road session. I wouldn't use those off-road particularly unless it was a really good surface, because road shoes, they're just not designed to go on rocks and for your foot to be at all kinds of different angles. So if you are someone who runs on several different terrains, I would definitely advise that you have shoes that suit each terrain that you choose to race on, and that they fit well. Once you've got shoes that fit well, you also need to make sure that they are well worn in. So every shoe, even if it's exactly the same make and model, is going to be ever so slightly different. So my advice to you with a new pair of shoes is to strap them on and to wear them in the house for a bit, to wear them in and then go on a few short runs. That way you know if there are any niggles, if there are any problems with the shoe. Certainly while it's inside, you're going to have less problems sending it back, and you can iron out those problems or exchange the shoe if it's not working for you. Once you've done a few short runs in them, you can then probably try them on some longer runs. In addition to wearing them in, another important factor with shoes is to change them regularly. So a shoe that has worked for you for months is eventually gonna wear out, and that's gonna cause all kinds of problems. It can ultimately cause injury if you're someone who needs quite a lot of support in your foot. That support will disappear over time, and things like the grips on the bottom will start to get flatter. As you can see, these aren't quite as pronounced as they were at the start. But even inside the shoe, things will start to go wrong inside the shoe. So while good shoe care will help them last, at some point you are going to change them. They used to reckon sort of every 150 to 200 miles, but I would go on your experience with your shoes. If you find that they're not working as well after 3 months, then change them after 3 months. Once you've got your well-fitting shoes and you've worn them in and you're away, if you're still getting blisters, then there's a couple of other things that you can also do. The other one is foot care, which I would advise for everybody really, but especially for runners, because these are the things that are allowing you to do your hobby. So obviously general hygiene and stuff is going to help keep them clean and avoid things like athlete's foot, which can develop especially if you're in wet shoes a lot, which if you're a trail runner at some point you will have been. But also just generally keeping your nails clipped, keeping things sorted. If you notice anything strange like a corn developing, getting on top of that either by going to a chiropodist or doing some home care yourself on it. But taking good care of your feet is also going to help just prevent niggles from developing into problems. In addition to that, if you start to feel a blister developing, the best thing to do is to get on it before it develops into a full-blown thing. I have to say, with that example from the start of this video, that happened in a relatively short race, and I think it was just because I was hammering down quite a steep hill, which wasn't something I was used to in shoes that I wasn't used to doing it in, and that was causing a lot of friction, which eventually salamied my foot. So as soon as you notice a blister coming on, ideally sort it straight away, but as soon as you get back from your run, and clean it up. If there's a lot of liquid in it, you can and you've got something to put over the blister, you can burst that, take off the excess tin and put something over the blister. If it's really big and you think that the blister, as it were, is going to protect it for a bit, then maybe leave it as it is. But take some advice on that. If you're not sure, go to a chemist. The sooner you deal with it, the better. For small blisters, I find that Compeed works really, really well. And for that salami foot, that I actually had to do some proper padding, Savlon, and I couldn't run on it for a fair few weeks. So just be mindful that you can't always run on bad blisters, and it can actually cause quite a lot of damage to your foot if you do. Once you've done your general foot care, if you're still really, really struggling after doing all those things, another thing you can try, which I have tried in the past, is putting some Vaseline on your feet. It just basically creates a lubricant on your foot. It feels a bit weird when you're running, it's a little bit squelchy, and it certainly makes a bit of a mess of your socks, which is hard to get out, but it did work for me, and it certainly got me through a race at a point where I was really struggling with both shoes and my feet. I think the reason why I was probably suffering quite a lot at that time was possibly that I just increased my mileage quite quickly. So as a final aside, your feet need to adapt to things just like the rest of your body. So building up your mileage slowly is a really good idea. And if your feet are only used to running for 90 minutes and you want to do 3 hours, they're going to get sore at the end of that. So just be mindful of that. Obviously, other things can also really put you more at risk of blisters. So things like if you're not used to running with wet feet and suddenly you enter, you're in a run or you enter a race where it's wet from the start, your skin gets soft, it's less capable of dealing with friction and hard knocks, and you are going to be more at risk of blisters. And the only thing you can really do is, again, habituate your feet to that kind of environment. So, if you know that you're going to be running a lot in the English Fells where it's going to be wet and muddy, then running on those courses in training is going to be really good practice, not just for your fitness, but also for your feet. Build up mileage gradually, take real good care of your feet, invest in good socks, invest in good shoes, and change shoes and socks actually regularly, so that they're fresh and working as well as they were on day one. Wherever you're racing, I hope that you have happy and blister-free feet. If you liked this video, then do subscribe to our channel. We have lots of helpful hints and tips for runners here. And if you click the bell, then you'll always be notified when a new video arrives and you'll never miss it. Thanks for listening. Bye.